Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Through installment of Scott Selections here for Sunday, January 8th. For again today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We had a loss in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes over 324.5 passing yards at minus 115 on DraftKings. Mahomes was actually on pace to go over after the first half, ended up having 175 in the first half, and then had a total of 27 passing yards in the entire second half. The Raiders had two separate 8+ minute drives, and on top of that, the Chiefs dominated the entire game. So game flow was not in our favor, and the Chiefs ran the ball pretty much the entire second half. So Mahomes was not close to going over, wasn't close to breaking the single season record, and we picked up a loss. So looking for a bounce back winner here on Sunday. And for today's play of the day, going back to the NFL, looking at a 1 o'clock game between the Buccaneers and the Falcons. And for this matchup, going to take the Buccaneers first quarter plus 1.5 points at minus 145 on DraftKings. Time recording of 3 a.m. Eastern time. Covering is why I like Tampa first quarter in this spot. First reason, looking at the actual motivation for both teams, there is none. Atlanta has had nothing to play for a couple of weeks, and you could argue that they're better off losing because they'll get a better draft pick. Meanwhile, Tampa clinched the division last week after beating Carolina, and you'd assume they would kind of copy in the Giants' footsteps or a couple other playoff teams and bench the entire squad. However, Coach Bowles said after that Panthers game that the starters will play for a little while at least in Week 18 because they still have something to work on. In other words, Bowles indirectly admitted the team's not very good and needs to try to build up some momentum and some chemistry potentially leading into the playoffs. And I think he's right. They're looking at Tampa, and they are in arguably the worst division in all of football. Actually, I think it's pretty obvious at this point. And you're looking at Tampa's overall offense this season, with the exception of last week, really not good. And I do think Brady and company should be on the field for at least one quarter, which makes me question why Atlanta is favored in the first quarter. Now, I get it. Atlanta for the full game is favored because Tampa's going to bring in Kyle Trask and some backups for at least a couple of quarters. But the first quarter, with Tampa using a lot of its starters, I think this line's a little bit off, especially with Atlanta's first quarter struggles lately. So Desmond Ridder took over the starting quarterback job 3 games ago. And in those 3 games, Atlanta has scored a total of 0 points in the first quarter. They have not scored in the first 15 minutes of each of their last 4 games, actually, dating back to the last game Mariota started. So Atlanta can't score in the first 15, and now they're laying 1.5. I think that's a little bit absurd, and that's why I'm going to take the points. Plus, the Falcons, even with Mariota, have been awful at actually having a lead entering the second quarter for several months. Atlanta has not led entering the second quarter in each of its last 7 games. So 7 straight games, Atlanta's either been tied or losing after the first quarter. And once again, they're laying 1.5. I don't agree with it. I think Tampa should keep this game close for the first 15, maybe even taking a lead after the first 15. But I do think Atlanta's first quarter offense is so non-existent that Tampa should be able to cover this number. And the Falcons' defense in the first quarter is also not great. Falcons are allowing 5.1 points per game in the first quarter, which is tied for 4th most in the league. Buccaneers, not bad, allowing just 4 points per game in the first quarter, which ranks tied for 14th. But you have Tampa with Brady, with Evans, with Godwin, all those guys playing for probably the first quarter before they bring in Trask and the backups against an Atlanta team that just can't score in the first quarter. I think this line's a pretty good deal, and I do think the minus 145, it might sound juicy until you shop around and you see minus 155, minus 160 at other books. So for that reason, I'm going to take it. If you want to be a little bit riskier, you could take Buccaneers first quarter money line at around plus 110, but I'll play it safe, and I will take the tie, also resulting in a win. So the play that once again here for Sunday, January 8th, is going to be on the Buccaneers first quarter, plus 1.5 at minus 145 on DraftKings.